Today we're going to talk about this, the Arturia Microfreak. I don't know why I keep saying Mini Brute. Microfreak. I got this just a few days ago. It was, I think, on Tuesday or Wednesday or something. Just to give you a bit of context, because this is the first on this channel to feature some hardware. I have a whole bunch of hardware, and if you watched on my Instagram account sometime last year, you would have seen videos where I would using modular synthesizers and things like that. I still have all of those. They're all in storage at the moment because I'm going through quite a painful, long process of moving house. I hope that's going to be done soon, but it's taking its time. And I had a MIDI keyboard that broke down a couple of months ago. It was just a small, cheap thing, and I needed something slightly more expressive than a QWERTY keyboard or a mouse to put notes in, and I decided to get one of these. Well, you may question, is this the best keyboard that you could get? No, it probably isn't, but it also appealed to me the way it sounded, and I saw a lot of videos about people using it. So I'm just going to give you a quick insight into what I think about this, because there are some things that I think are great and some things that I think could be improved, and some things that are great in certain contexts but not in others. So in short, what do I like about it? It's super easy to understand. I just had a look at the YouTube video and then I could find my way easily around it. There is like pretty much no menu diving, even though it's got a little helpful display. The modulation matrix, great, like super easy to understand, and also really versatile. So if I would compare this to, let's say, the Korg Minilog that I had at some point last year, which was also very easy to understand, but I think the sound palette of this one is much bigger. It's not going to be a full-on tutorial, but just to give you a bit of an overview, it's got a digital oscillator and an analog filter, and it modulates lots of different types of synthesis, including it's got like a virtual analog. It's got formant, which sounds a bit like a human voice. It's got a simple FM synth, and it's got something that does sort of a bit of physical modeling, etc. And the oscillators sound fine, and they are quite versatile, but they are not versatile compared to just the stock stuff that you get with Ableton. So it depends on how important it is to you to not have a laptop as part of your setup. Yeah, doorless jamming is a bit of a thing. I think it could become a problem in a live context where if you get someone standing behind their laptop staring at their screen, you have no idea, are they looking at Facebook or are they actually making some music? I personally don't mind it if there is a laptop on stage, but there are other stuff that the musicians are doing. And I think that's where something like, well, whether you want to use a laptop or not, this becomes really interesting because it is versatile. It's got a built-in sequencer. It's got a clock in so you can sync it with your modular, and you can definitely do stuff on this that would be much more difficult on a modular, like chord progressions and things like that, because the sequencer is actually polyphonic, and it can create quite interesting sounds with it. One thing that I also like about this is that it doesn't have lots of built-in effects. I've actually heard that as a complaint, but to me, when you get lots of effects bundled in a synth, it could be practical, I suppose, but to me it feels a bit like those old TVs with a built-in VHS player. I rather just do that separately. This one doesn't have any effects, but I have to say that it actually needs something, at least some EQing and things like that. But I think it sounds pretty cool. So overall, I think it's a good device, but if you have a laptop around and you're comfortable with a laptop, I wouldn't buy this for the sounds alone. I think because I like the idea of it, that I could get away without using a laptop if I need to. I also like that it's a physical thing to play, because I think you might agree that the method or the tools you have for making music actually affects the music you're making. And I would say the sound that you hear at the end is probably more affected by the tools that you used rather than, let's say, comparing analog to digital oscillators, which, yeah, there is a difference, but how big is that difference? I think it's more like, for example, how I make music on the modulator is very different from the computer. However, that method of working has affected me how I use Ableton and vice versa. Anyway, I needed something to play. The keyboard is obviously maybe not the first choice when it comes to buying a MIDI keyboard. It is velocity sensitive in a slightly different way to a conventional keyboard. It's because this is a... it measures velocity based on how much skin is touching this sort of circuit board keyboard. So if I do, let's see if I can get this to work now. Oh, I need a bit more envelope, I think. Which is interesting, and it also works for, it works to control stuff in Ableton and stuff, which is really cool. I think my biggest beef with this one is the envelope, because it's actually only a 3-stage envelope. It's attack, then they have combined decay and release, and then there's a separate sustain. I quite often actually just turn the sustain off, and then I want to have a short decay but a long release. Well, maybe a little bit of sustain, and then you get sort of plucks with quite a long tail, which is not as easy to make on this. Now if we look over at the screen, I got this Arturia Microfreak hardware editor, which is a Max4Live device that I got the other day, allowing you to both, if I'm turning the knob on the synthesizer, turning the cutoff knob, you can see it's changing on the screen, but also vice versa. You can control the sound on the Arturia Microfreak using this device, which becomes really powerful if you combine that with modulation from Max4Live, like LFOs or envelopes or other things like that. It's really powerful. It's made by someone called Nora, and forgive me if I got this wrong. I think of Nora as being a female name, but if you are not female, apologize. This device is, you pay what you think it's worth, and I do encourage you pay for it, because building things like this takes time, and I think that she would probably appreciate it a lot. I paid for it, and so should you. It allows you to control most things. There are a few things that I don't know if it's maybe not possible to map, but for example, you can't modulate the pitch, which is quite an essential thing when it comes to like making percussive sounds and something like that. I don't think you can modulate. No, you can't. Well, I suppose you can modulate the volume in a different way. Sorry, that's just me being stupid. There are also some other nice features, like they got a button where you can press and just randomizes to create random patches, which is really interesting. It's very useful. It's a funny one. It's just gonna go to a init patch. So I mentioned, well, maybe I didn't mention, but I think it's quite interesting to use this to just generate lots of sounds. I did a little test a couple of days ago to see if I could make some music just using this as a sound source. I have added effects and things like that after in Ableton, but I'm just going to put in a little clip now so you can hear what that sounded like. I have just made a little sequence here in one of the clips. I think it's just sort of every sort of a half note thing going. And I'm going to generate a whole bunch of samples using some Max4Live devices and see what sort of sounds this machine can make, and see if we can use some Max4Live devices just to create some interesting modulation. So we can do take this CV shaper, for example, which is an envelope. It's my own version of this. There is one that comes with Ableton, which is just running freely like a complex LFO, but this one is a modified one which triggers like an envelope, so every time it receives a MIDI note. So if I map this to, just for the sake of argument, let's do the cutoff. Let's make some. Just making some stuff up now. Okay, let's press play on this. So as you can see, that could be an interesting thing you could do. We can do my go-to Max4Live device, which it's almost like a sample and hold that generates random values, and we can do that on the oscillator type, for example. And then we can set maybe a variable decay time. I just want to turn that up a bit. Continue to map on that too. So now just modulating the rate, we'll turn that decay down a bit. Modulating the rate and maybe the depth of that one as well. We can do that, map the depth. So then that affects the CV shaper. Actually, I'm going to change this because, I mean, if you could have changed the pitch would have been great in here, but I'm just going to do, let's make something that is a bit longer. And then we can do a C3, and then we can do a C4, and then we can do a lower one, a C2, and then we can do a C1. And then we can do a C3 again. Decay a bit longer, I think. And the same with we need more random. Okay, what else can we do? Should we add in the regular CV shaper? CV triggers, where do we have you there? So we can make a complex LFO and we can change the wave maybe, and then we can change, should we do an LFO as well? Just more, we can do a sample and hold maybe. Oh no, how do I change the waveform here? Do random. Set that to the shape. Stop. overwhelmed by sound. And then we can have another one of these random ones, which could maybe set the depth of that one, the speed of it. Could we even change this by using that? I think so. Maybe not. And then we can do the depth on that one instead as well. Okay, let's just generate loads of sounds. If you liked this video or what I do, please don't hesitate to check out my other videos. And if you sponsor me on Patreon, link in the description, I will generate a whole bunch of sounds for you, some random ones, some good for percussion, and you will be able to, I'll make sure that there will be at least a couple of hundred sounds for you to download from this sample pack and generated through this process. And I hope you enjoyed, and tune in again soon. Thank you.